I think you're one of the most non-consensus thinkers out there. So I want to see what your thesis is and then learn from that from my own point of view. And I think there's a lot of learning opportunity around that. And you've also had the view that we need more focus on the apps rather than the infrastructure layer. And consensus, I would say, is on the infrastructure layer, on the picks and shovels. And there's this comment I tweeted yesterday that Ethereum is prioritizing decentralization, Solana is prioritizing breakthrough apps. I don't think of it as a good or bad. I mean, I think differentiation is actually important. You want to see differentiation. There's room for more than one player as well. Do you think that's an accurate summary, or how would you look at where you see Solana and Ethereum going? And I guess the broader context around this is the trilemma, right? And I guess 2 years ago, my thought process was that you're going to see chains focus on different aspects of the trilemma and try to differentiate around that. Solana focusing on speed and usability, Ethereum focusing on decentralization. But now you're starting to see light clients, you're starting to see folks seeming to want to check a broader set of criteria rather than narrowly focusing on one vertex of the trilemma. So a lot there, but again, how do you think about the kind of long-term differentiation of Solana and Ethereum? And is that a fair organizing principle?
Um, yeah. So a lot of thoughts here. Where to begin? So I think most researchers in the space today don't think about the trilemma much anymore. I certainly don't. Um, Decentralization. There are a lot of ways to measure decentralization.
Mm-hmm.
A system is, as a general statement, as decentralized as its most centralized component. Um, and so if you are trying to maximize decentralization, you should be trying to maximize all of those vectors. Those vectors include things like number of validators, number of leaders, number of leaders to get to 33%, number of leaders to get to 67%, number of clients and code bases, number of physical data centers that things are. There's a bunch of these
Sure,
you
sure.
can get into.
Right.
And,
There's a lot of
and,
limiting
and some of them
factors
are
too.
some of them are more important than others across different dimensions. So, for example, like censorship, number of code bases is important primarily for resiliency if there's bugs.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very specific form of decentralization.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't matter except in a moment of crisis,
Mm-hmm.
in which it does matter.
Mm-hmm.
Others like Nakamoto coefficient are directly
Right.
a function of censorship resistance,
Right.
and also neutrality of transaction inclusion in
Mm-hmm.
blocks.
Right.
So I don't want to go into the rabbit hole of like each of those and the pros and
Sure.
cons of them and whatever.
Right.
What I would say is that Solana is primarily focused on a few things here. One is, most importantly, is use case, which was and still continues to be NASDAQ on the blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
And
The
then
original vision.
from there, the what that means is they are trying to maximize the number of consensus participants all over the world, geographically, as well as Nakamoto coefficient, because that increases the credible neutrality of the exchange, of the probability that any one leader is going to block your transaction.
Mm-hmm.
Once Solana, I think at some point next year, will add concurrent block production, meaning they will be able to have multiple 2, 3, 4, 5 leaders at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And once that happens, that will dramatically increase the amount of credible neutrality per unit of time in the system.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the primary things that Solana optimizes for.
Mm-hmm.
From what I can tell, the primary thing Ethereum is optimizing for is the number of nodes that are able to validate the state of the chain, and not necessarily in full, but probabilistically with data availability sampling, which is a very different thing to optimize for.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot describe to you why that is the optimal thing from a commercial perspective. I understand why from a certain ideological perspective that may be what you want to optimize for, but I do not understand how that maps to long-term commercial output. I can describe to you why credibly neutral NASDAQ is the foundation for like human financial coordination over the next 50 years.
Is there, and like as an entrepreneur, I'm very pragmatic. I think commercial focus matters. You have to know your customer target, the use case, and work backwards. You need revenue, you need generation of that. I also want to see securities on chain too. I think we need to embrace revising and policy shifts around securities laws. So I like the overall vision of decentralized markets on chain and NASDAQ on chain.